Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
My name is J.C. McCauley. I am honored to serve as the president of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance. It is a 25-year-old unincorporated, nonpartisan alliance of individuals, organizations joined together to come up with strategies and to advocate for actions that benefit the African American communities in the Greater Hartford area. After the armed civilian patrols started a few weeks ago, it quickly became a hot topic of discussion at our weekly meetings. On Saturday, March the 23rd, community members gathered together at an event organized by the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, and we had a community roundtable to discuss the issues of gun violence. Rather than for us to sit back and decide what is good and what is bad and design strategies for communities, we figured we might go out and actually talk to the citizens in the community. People had been putting pressure on us to come up with a statement, where do we stand? Well, we generally stand where the community stands. So we had a roundtable discussion. It lasted for 2 hours and 30 minutes. It was probably one of the rainiest days of the year, and we had about 30, 40 people conservatively. And unanimously, those in attendance were against armed civilian patrols. We listened to testimonies, and surprisingly, most people were all right with folks being armed. What they are not in favor of is civilian patrols leading with, we're armed and we are here to protect you, in the middle of the night with loudspeakers and bullhorns. I talked to one gentleman who is a minister who lives on that street, and the first he heard about it was when the bullhorns were going on. So I don't necessarily question the integrity of the individuals who are trying to do this, but I do question whether or not they truly are there as a request of the community. I think there may be individuals who feel that this is necessary, but there's always an issue when individuals come from outside the community and impose their will on the community. We believe that there are better ways to solve this issue. Many in attendance offered a number of viable solutions that we feel the mayor, the police, and residents should pursue that don't create a more volatile safety situation on our city streets. I do have a transcript. I won't go over everybody because it was long, 2 hours, 30 minutes. But some of the individuals that spoke that stand out, I'll just read a couple lines from their testimonies. And this is all available online at our website, GHAAA.com. It's the landing page. You can watch the whole 2 hours and 30 minutes in terms of us being transparent. One person said, I'm not for yelling and all that other stuff, because now all of a sudden, you know me, you're taking the easy way out. So this individual felt they're taking the easy way out. He goes on and he says, if you want to scream that you're armed and are here to protect, then you need to do that at the state capitol. He goes on and he talks about how we have a community that is under stress, as you can look around and see. And as much as people would like not to deal with some of the obvious, the underground economy is flourishing in certain parts of the city. And we have come to a place where there is no longer a line. People just cross the line. They don't care. And what the main feedback that we got from citizens is that if you're going to be out here saying that you're armed, if you're brandishing a gun while you're doing so, you're going to create a situation that eventually is triggered, and there's going to be people doing drive-bys, and that's what people are afraid of. We believe that we need to work with our police department in coming up with strategies to put more police officers in this community. Not that we're going to police our way out of this, but the police are the only duly deputized agents who can enforce the law. Now, I say that communities are self-sustaining, they're self-educating, and they're self-policing. And so people say, well, we're in the community and we're armed and we're policing ourselves. I say, well, the communities around us, the suburban communities, have community patrols. They're called police officers. Their police officers are in the community. So I think we need to really encourage our community residents to apply to become police officers. Churches, mosques, synagogues that are in this area should be doing the best that they can to recruit young people to become cadets, to move into the police department. Our police department also needs to be more engaged in the community, developing relationships, so there's less of an occupying force in the community and more of a serve and protect force in the community. So the Greater Hartford African American Alliance is opposed to the armed citizen patrols based on the feedback that we got from the community. And we consider the community members our constituents. They're the people who we serve. And so that is our official stance, that we believe that the police are the best agents to do the policing, not citizens that don't necessarily live in the community. And that ends my commentary. Miss Bridget Prince, I'm sure will have a few words to say as she approaches the mic. And then we'll take questions if you have any.
Sometimes I move as slow as she does. So my apologies. Good morning, everyone. We have Attorney Cynthia Jenner joining us also. All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Bridget Prince. Bridget spelled Bridgitte, last name Prince, Prince. And I am part of the team of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance. And we are here to present our resolution objecting and denouncing the armed patrol that was started. Actually, it started here in Uni Plaza. It began Labor Day weekend, September 2nd, actually. Tracy Funny, one of the community activists, and I think this is important information, she wanted to do something and make a stance against the violence, because prior to that, it was 3 murders right here in the Uni Plaza area, probably a week or two apart from each other. So she wanted to send a message to the shooters and the gangs and whoever it was or is that is causing the gun violence. So she contacted Cornell Lewis. So I wanted to make that known, because it started here in Uni Plaza. This is where how Cornell Lewis came into the picture in recent months. So subsequent to that, there's been shootings, several shootings every day, and some murders. But subsequent to that, the next occurrence that happened was with Archbishop Dexter Burke over there in Walking the Light Church. That was at a couple press conferences with him, called to come participate in the press conferences. And this stemmed from the double murder on Garden Street in February. So Archbishop Burke said, okay, we are going to do a block watch because we are tired of the gun violence. However, the block watch that he established was formulated based on the double homicide that happened on someone's private property. After that, there was another news meeting, and again, Archbishop Burke called me and said they were doing an armed patrol. I came, but stressed my position that I was against the armed patrol, simply because more guns, whether they're legal or illegal, are not going to solve the problem of obsessive guns and gun violence here in this community. I have researched and read some of Cornell Lewis's positions on the armed patrol, and it is, I don't know if you get a chance, it's in he did an interview in The Revolt. It's on YouTube, The Revolt, REVOLT, with a gun as their emblem. And in this interview, he talked about having the gun patrol here. He talked about having an AR-15 and people positioned in cars where you do not know who they are. Just being out here, whether there were shootings or not. So, but even more importantly, he has made this about politics. So I think that is probably the most important takeaway for me. He in this interview, he mentioned denouncing the Democrats at least 4 or 5 times and siding with the Republicans. So now that even solidifies my position even more as to why I oppose it and why the alliance could and should continue to speak out against it, because now you are using an oppressed and de-stressed community plagued with violence and other social ills to make a political statement. My fear is that with them being out here with the guns, they will recruit or campaign for more residents to learn how to shoot and to apply for a gun permit, because this is the Republican way. So this is what I got from the interview with The Revolt, and even seeing Archbishop Dexter Burke in his position, upset about the political structures. And you cannot come and increase the gun violence or even increase the amount of guns in the community because you are against the political structure here. If you have a problem with what's happening down at City Hall, if you have a problem with what's happening at the state capitol, you should take your brigade or patrol or whatever it is over there to those public arenas, and not here in Unity Plaza or in North End of Hartford. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Bridget. It's spelled BRIDGITTE. Last name Prince, PRINCE. What I also want to add is about leadership too. So if we had a stronger leadership, I want to say something about Unity Plaza. Unity Plaza is the first black-owned, black-developed shopping plaza here in Hartford, if not all of the state of Connecticut. Also, when it was dedicated to the community 50 years ago, the first black woman to run for president of the United States in a major party, who was Shirley Chisholm, stood right here and dedicated this plaza. So I think us as leaders, we should spend more time and energy inspiring the community, teaching the community, letting the community know their history, and then dealing with the social ills who brought us from the early 1970s to this present day and age. So I think we have a responsibility, and us as leaders in this community have really fallen short. We should not be here counting the number of bodies that fell in Unity Plaza. We should be counting triumphs and accomplishments that have that are building up because of what this plaza means to us. So this is why we are here in this plaza today. Thank you. And we have civil rights. Let the president continue to introduce who you will.
Attorney Cynthia Jennings, who's also a member of the Alliance.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Jennings, as Stan McCauley said, and I am a civil rights attorney. And in this community, we have had many issues that addressed and took away our civil rights. We have got to provide strong leadership in this community at the helm of our police department. Originally, the police were brought into this country to serve as slave catchers. And this is the same mentality that a lot of police are currently exhibiting based on who they arrest and how frequently our people are arrested in this community. The job of the police is to protect and serve, and nothing else. And it is not the police department that has the right to be judge, jury, and prosecutor. So that means to pull out the weapons and the guns and actually pull them on our people is unacceptable. Now, in terms of these individuals that want to bring guns into our community, we have enough guns in our community. We have more than enough guns in our community. What we need is strong leadership in our police department. I can honestly say that we have a new mayoral administration that is actually looking at the type of individuals that should be representing the police in this city. And I hope that the final decision comes out with the will of the people. When you talk about what's happened in Hartford, we talk about the number of laws that have been ignored by the past police chief. The African American Alliance stood down in front of City Hall at the time and talked about the fact that we wanted our police chief that is currently leaving now, Jason Thody, we want our police chief to actually follow and comply with the laws, the civil rights and anti-discrimination laws in the state of Connecticut. So we have laws that that this chief has lobbied against. That includes Cintron versus Vaughn, which was a federal consent decree, a 50-year-old federal consent decree that ordered the city of Hartford to hire people and hire a police force that reflects the demographics of the people that live in this community. That has not happened. And we have great disparities in terms of the people that are arrested, the length of the sentences. Once you're arrested, you're at the mercy of the court system. And if you have no money to defend yourself, you are really at the mercy of the court system. So when we're talking about what goes on in this community, it's not more guns that we need. We do not need brigades going around the city and actually, quote unquote, protecting the city. We need a police chief, and we need police officers who actually are trained to protect and serve the entire city, not just one part of the city. So when we talk about that, I think that we also have to talk about the patrols going around in the city and the fact that the liability to the city is humongous. You let someone get shot by somebody who's running one of those brigades and patrols, and what's going to happen? The city is going to be sued. When you talk about the people that are living in the community, they have to be talked to and asked whether or not they want patrols in the city with guns protecting their community. All right, so I think that it's important that we do that. We have a state statute, and we have the federal consent decree has been sunset. And the chief that we had right now has actually campaigned to sunset it, making a statement that it's older than he is. Yes, it's 50 years old. And the bottom line is, in 50 years, the city of Hartford has not complied with hiring, recruiting, retaining, promoting people in this community to become police officers. I know when we had Commander Paul West, who was running the recruitment division, we had 80% higher recruitment of Hartford residents than we've had at any other time in this city. And after that, following under the current chief, Jason Thody, we've had many of those women, many of those individuals that live in this community actually terminated from the police department after the recruitment, the major recruitment effort took place. So I think that it's important that we follow our information that we have, follow our numbers, and say what we want to say, do what we want, what needs to be done in this city. I think that Bridget Prince has worked hard. Stan McCauley has worked hard as president of the African American Alliance. Bridget Prince has worked hard to get the information out into this community and change many things that have happened in this community. But one thing she did mention was Shirley Chisholm, who stood at this plaza, and her mantra was unbought, unbossed, and unafraid, and that is the kind of leadership we need in the city of Hartford, and it is absolutely the kind of leadership we need at the Hartford Police Department. Thank you.
The mayor is going to announce the Office of Violence Prevention today, a new head of it. What do you think about that solution?
Well, the Office of Violence Prevention, I think that's it's a noble effort, but it's what I would refer to as smoke and mirrors. Hartford has a serious problem, and if you ask yourself what's going on, then you have to ask yourself why it's going on. The Office of Violence Prevention seems to be something more directed toward youth. A lot of the things that are going on here aren't youth-oriented. It's a matter of survival. The city is a poor city, and we need to address the root issues of this. It's not an Office of Violence Prevention issue as far as I'm concerned.
I'll speak as well to the Office of Violence Prevention, and thank you for that question. The Office of Violence Prevention should absolutely be tied to a strong leadership in the city of Hartford, as well as the strong leadership that we need in the police department. So I think if we're talking about the Office of Violence Prevention, then we need to talk about why we're having violence in this city. Number one, there's an economic problem, and that most of the people that are hired by the city of Hartford do not live in the city of Hartford, that a lot of the contracting and the developers that come in here and develop here are not developing this community and are not developing people, developing the people that we need to develop in order to change the disparities that we're faced with historically in this city. So I think that when you talk about an Office of Violence Prevention, it's got to be somehow associated strongly with a stronger police chief, a stronger mayor in terms of supporting public safety and making sure that when you're talking about violence prevention, as Stan McCauley said, it is not about just training the youth. It's about providing economic opportunities, educational opportunities, and making sure and employment opportunities for people that live in the entire city, not just part of the city. One part of this city is being incarcerated and oppressed, and the other part of the city is almost in a position where they can't support anything but the belief that the people in here are criminals. And most of the people that live here are law-abiding citizens. They are not criminals, and they are not being given the opportunities. Their children are not being given the opportunities for educational, employment, and other opportunities that will allow them to raise their families and raise strong children. So once you strengthen the parents and the family structure, you strengthen the children. Most of the women and most of the people that had families in the city are women. And women need to be on the police force as well. So we really need to think about how we're providing, what opportunities we're providing, what opportunities we're taking away, and what level of oppression we're throwing on a community that is not in any way considered to be the criminals that we are portrayed to be. So I thank the media for being here, and I thank everyone who's bringing these questions and that issue of Office of Violence Prevention. The question is, will it prevent violence? Every single program that we put money into in this city should be put before the people in terms of, will this prevent violence, especially in the communities where most of the violence takes place. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, I'd like to add to that. And I think the one thing that does not happen in this community that happens in every suburban community, the issue of substance abuse and mental health is not appropriately and adequately addressed in this community. If you have a opioid or heroin or any other crisis in Avon or Glastonbury, Greenwich, it will be appropriately addressed, not just on the municipal level, but there will be legislation passed, and there will be millions of dollars funneled into that community to address that issue. In this community, through my lens, I see that it really fell apart. The black community, dating back to the early 80s when the crack epidemic hit. Now, that has never been addressed. I was stationed in Washington, D.C. when that actually happened. Everyone seemed to have been caught up and affected by it, from the mayor, who was Mayor Marion Barry, down to people serving in the military installations, and other, regular citizens, politicians. So it was something that literally ravished the community, and I think it really plagued the black community harder. The laws that were passed there under President Clinton, the maximum minimums or minimum maximums, they actually caused further oppression in this community, and that was never addressed. What is being addressed now when you talk about drug addiction, again, it is your car being jacked in Glastonbury and the opioids that are in that community, and those are being, like I said, addressed, and not only addressed, but there's compassion with that. There's empathy. There's sympathy. It's not looked as being criminal. It's as opposed to what's happening here in this community. And until they start addressing that, which fell on this community 40 years ago, I don't think you can talk about being successful in the Office of Violent Prevention, because you're not really addressing and confronting what happened in these communities several decades ago. So the same investment should be made, and not just, let me say this: money does come. Money comes into these communities. People use numbers to say, oh, there's 80% poverty, there's 60% unemployment, and those monies come and they are sent to the government, they are sent to nonprofits, but why they never come to address what is happening right here, that's something that needs to really be combated and confronted. The Office of Violence Prevention, it sounds great, but who's really going to benefit from it? Is it just going to be a staff that's, got, $100,000 a year jobs? Is it going to be a few nonprofits, or is it going to be the community? So, being a person in this community, from this community, with those experiences, that is what I feel has not been adequately addressed. And I hope that somebody comes up and says we need to really start dealing with the root problem of why everybody's running around here with guns. Thank you.
And just finally, to your question, violence prevention is very broad. Domestic violence. The issue here is not violence. Violence is an outgrowth of other things. The issue here is crime. Crime is the issue. And if you're unwilling to enforce the law, as we have seen over the past couple of years since the pandemic started, where it was a free-for-all and you've lost control of the city, there's graffiti everywhere, and if you have a community that is racked by poverty and forced to go into the underground economy of drug sales, you're going to have violence. So, Office of Crime Prevention would be better than the Office of Violence Prevention, and crime is citywide. As quietly as it's kept, same activity happens on the south side. So they ought not make the north end the boogeyman. What we're dealing with here are civilians who believe they need to take the law into their own hands, and they're walking around on the streets with long guns and saying that they're armed, and that needs to stop.
How many times have they done that with the bullhorns?
I'm only aware, I can only quantify the time that I saw on one of the news broadcasts where they went out with them. They've done several. I've heard complaints from citizens, but the fact of the matter is, it's an unsustainable effort. It's an unsustainable effort. And, are they going to come into this community every day? No. Are they going to come into the community 2-3 times a week? Probably so. And it becomes something that can trigger and turn into a very violent reaction. That's what we're very concerned about.
So Bridget, what started
on these things with these people if they're asked?
Oh, by all means, they should go. I'm a big... If I'm going to take a bullet, it's for free speech. Absolutely, because that's how you know what's happening. If it's not for the media getting the message out, people would be unaware. These things would be happening, but the broader community would not know. Now, they're talking about extending this throughout the city. What we need to extend is law and order throughout the city, and in my never to be humble opinion, throughout the country. And so we need to support our police, but our police need good leadership. And hopefully part of the mayor's strategy for violence prevention is to have a real search for a police chief that's going to be in a position of leadership, and that's chosen by the people of Hartford.
And Bridget, what was it that started Labor Day weekend then?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
You had said something started Labor Day weekend. What was it? It wasn't the armed patrols.
Well, actually, yes, that is exactly what it was. It was the armed patrol. It started with Tracy Funny. She's a community activist.
Did they go out that weekend, though?
No, they were just well, actually, they did march.
They did.
They marched, yes. They
So
started
they've
here.
gone out twice now that you know of with bullhorns then? That was the first
Well,
weekend was Labor Day
yeah.
weekend?
Well, they went out with the bullhorns from here, and they actually went out with the Hartford Police Department.
That was Labor Day weekend.
That was
Yes.
Labor Day weekend.
And then they didn't do it again until a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now?
Not in earnest. In earnest, they did it when Bishop Dexter Burke invited them to come back. That's when they kicked it back up
Right.
again.
I do want to thank the media, really, because as Stan McCauley said, a lot of things that are happening in this community, it would just continue to happen in a vacuum if it wasn't for the media. I'm a media person, so I am the first one to say, let's get the media out here, because the community at large would not know. So, really, thank you so much for always coming out and answering the calls, because this is how things change. The media's fourth branch of government. So I am definitely a big fan, and we will continue to call you. So thank you so much. Any more questions?
Just one more. I know that you made a comment that people living here have been forced into the drug sales and that there's not a lot of employment opportunities. From an outsider perspective, all we hear is everybody's hiring, everybody wants to bring people in. So where's the issue here? How are people in Hartford not able to get jobs and connected with them?
Well, if you start with the arrest, and then you go to the court, and then you go to the felony conviction. The felony conviction is a major deterrent for people to hire. So when you talk about that, and you also talk about the school system and what's happening in the schools to our children and what they're not being taught, that locks them out. So there are huge disparities that may in some part be legitimate. There's some things you cannot hire. There's a bona fide occupational requirement to have police officers that are able to see, that are able-bodied. So then disabilities play into that. We have a huge problem with disabilities in our community just because of the huge health disparity and the level of poverty that people are living in. So when you talk about reducing opportunities, no, everybody is not going to be in a position where they are going to be hired from this community. And we have a lot to do that we have to do in order to justify that. But I know that the Greater Hartford African American Alliance has been out here for years fighting the current police chief, calling for his resignation because he was not complying with civil rights laws or any other laws necessarily. So you don't get to pick and choose what laws you can stand for when you're a police chief. All right, and you also don't get to pick and choose who you hire, promote, and retain in your police department. So if you look at the head, who's at the helm of this police department, it is not reflective of this community. If you look at the officers, they are not reflective of this community. At least 5 years ago, the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, whenever there was, when the issue of the police chief came up, we fought for a police chief that reflected this community. We endorsed Paul West as our candidate. So we have moved forward and we have fought for justice, and we fought for the police chief to at least do his job and not ignore the civil rights laws and any other laws that he's ignoring when he does what he does. So I think it's important that we recognize that there people have been involved in the selection. I'm not saying that Paul West is the candidate that should be hired, but I'm saying that he should be considered along with any other chief or position candidate that looks like our community and comes and understands what's going on in our community. So when we go out there and we work as residents, or I live not more than a mile from here. Okay, I've been in this community for years. In fact, just basically all my life. And I think I have a right to say what I have to say. I have a right to have input into what goes on in this community and who is hired and who is selected. And I have a right to say when we want people removed for cause that they be at least investigated and possibly removed if they're doing things that are detrimental to those of us who live in this community.
Thank you for coming, and remember, without the cameraman, there is no news. And camera win.